The 2023 Residential Solar Project of the Year, as voted by the readers of Solar Builder, is the Seneca Nation Residential Solar Program in Irving, New York. The Seneca Nation received a grant to use toward renewable energy projects and contracted with GreenSpark Solar to install home PV systems for eligible members at a serious discount. Even better, the 200 plus kilowatts of solar installed thus far is just the beginning. Here to tell us about it is GreenSpark Residential Sales Manager Katie Stelick and CEO Kevin Schulte. Katie and Kevin, thanks for taking the time and congrats on winning one of our Project of the Year awards for 2023.
Thanks so much for having us, Chris.
I first wanted to start with GreenSpark itself. You know, I feel like I really, from afar, I've personally loved how you set up your business, being a certified B Corp, being a member of the Amicus Solar Cooperative. I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about your company before we get into the project itself.
We started our business in 2002, and it was founded by myself and a bunch of my college friends and roommates. And so foundationally, the company was built on this, thought of like, we're going to work with people that we love and we're friendly to one another. And so it sort of grew out of there when our first decisions as a business were like, okay, everybody gets health insurance and, everybody gets certain expenses paid for. And it just kind of grew from there.
With this project, the Seneca Nation residential solar program, can you give me the backstory of how this kind of came across your desk or who started the conversation?
Foundationally, it comes from our partnership with the Seneca Nation of Indians, right? So for about 7 or 8 years now, we've been working with the Seneca Nation to look at, opportunities across their sovereign territory, and then also within some of their business dealings that are not on sovereign territory. And so we've had a wonderful conversation with this, group of people. We've really just looked at all of the different opportunities that they have and their connection to the earth as a people and in sort of thematically for themselves, and said, how can we help you fulfill that? And so this program came about a couple of years ago. They got a grant for looking at putting solar on residences within the sovereign nation. And then as the IRA evolved, both from the law was written in July and August of 2022, and then the regulations started to get written, it evolved to say, hey, we could actually make that grant money go a lot farther if we utilize some of the terms within the IRA. And so what we did was we levered up by saying, okay, well, can we meet domestic content? That one's a little bit tough. We are dealing with low income. That one's pretty much a slam dunk. We are on sovereign nation, so that gets us into energy communities. So now we're levering up to 40, 50, 60% tax credits. So we need less grant dollars to produce really significant, Katie, where are we at 70% or more savings to the end users, 70 to 90%?
90%, yeah. Yep, they moved forward with moving towards a 90% contribution towards all of the solar projects.
I want to know a little bit more about that too, like in terms of, and maybe you've already touched on it, but how you're originally approaching it versus what you were able to do with the IRA incentives.
It almost became a no-brainer for a lot of these nation members because they were seeing payback periods of, maybe 2 to 4 years versus a typical upstate New York residential customer that might see anywhere from, 8 to 15 years on a return for a system. So by not only having the nation put towards that 90% contribution and just drastically lowering the cost and the payback period towards these, by using the IRA and kind of changing the model of how we were going to structure this program to create more of like a residential base and using the IRA program in order to move it forward, they were able to, own the system for the 7 years as well, which is a lot less of a headache for the customers.
Being on the residential side of the business, what does that change about your commitment to it or your obligations to service these homes long-term, beyond the installation? And
with the IRA and kind of the ownership structure that the nation is going to be having with these homes is they're going to be owning these systems for about 7 years in order to recoup those tax benefits. And it really helped. It was a big, big impact on everyone because the nation members didn't have to worry about getting those tax credits back. So I could go into each of those meetings without worrying about tax liability, being able to say, yes, you're low income, you don't need to worry about getting that 30% tax credit back. And the best part, like you're saying, from the O&M side of things, is that the nation is going to own your system for the first 7 years. So not only does that mean, that they're going to own it, but that means they're going to handle the maintenance side of things too. They were able to say, okay, I trust the nation, and the nation is going to own this for 7 years, so I can sit back and kind of see how the system is going to work and not have to worry about making this huge upfront investment.
Do you have any stories that maybe even go beyond the data? That's obviously awesome, the percentage, and we know how impactful that can be. But do you know of any actual personal stories that really show the impact?
Yeah. So what was really unique about families on nation territory is they do pass down a lot of their land and their houses, to different people in their family. So a lot of them were looking at it from a very long-term perspective. If I put this system on, are my kids and my grandkids going to potentially be able to use this or update it or change it? Or should I put it here? I was planning on putting, a house for my kids here. So should we put a ground mount here? So there was a lot more, logistics involved in that. And it was just great to hear the long-term perspective on how long they were going to use this solar. And they all kind of saw it because they are so tied to family and passing it down, is they kind of see the broader picture of solar in general. And then we also partnered with the Seneca Nation Credit Union. So they were able to take out a zero money down loan through the credit union for, different term lengths, whatever kind of made sense for them. So then the money kind of stayed within the nation as well. We didn't, finance through a national bank or anything. We partnered with and handed out their flyers and said, if you don't want to come up with this up front, feel free to go to the Seneca Nation Federal Credit Union and you can partner with them on your solar loan.
So what role did the Amicus Solar Cooperative play in the end of this as well? You tack on the grant, the IRA incentives, and then is it meaningful to have the buying power of the cooperative there too?
Amicus Solar Cooperative has done a lot for a project like this. Not, the very direct monetary aspects of GreenSpark is able to compete with the largest national solar installers because we use the buying power of the cooperative to get more cost-effective modules, more cost-effective racking, rail inverters, et cetera. And so, yes, having 80 companies within Amicus pooling their power together to buy modules at a better rate is meaningful and allows us to put that savings to work on really cool projects like this, right? That's number one. But then number two is when the IRA first came out, right? Number one, the policy and advocacy shop within Amicus was very close to the writing of the IRA. So we were working on the rules as they were coming out with different members of both houses of Congress. Our policy and advocacy shop has been in tune with Treasury the whole time on the writing of the rules. So each time those things iterate, Amicus comes together on a biweekly basis to say, hey, what's everybody thinking about? How do we use this IRA in this setting or that setting? And so this idea was actually seeded by a friend of mine who actually called me through the course of this call. A guy named Dan Conan out of West Virginia owns Solar Holler that's trying to turn former coal workers into solar workers in West Virginia, which is just an amazing story in and of itself. But he seeded this idea of how do we take a not-for-profit like the Seneca Nation of Indians sits on the U.S. tax books, get them to monetize the tax credit, utilize all of the Section 48 or the business credit ideas in a residential context. And so he really drove that idea and shared that with all 80 companies. So now we can take that idea and get here. And that's probably the most powerful presence within the Amicus, is that idea sharing. And so we've taken that now and we're working with the Seneca Nation. We're going to grow this program. We're working with places like the Rochester Housing Authority and Habitat for Humanity and all of these other entities that could potentially take this structure and deliver it right to their, house homeowners or members or whatever. And so that's the really exciting part.
The Project of the Year award kind of went through the phase one and the initial idea of the program. I wanted to kind of wrap up by you just explaining, what's coming up in phase 2.
We had an initial group of leads, say 200 to 300 leads on the nation. But as solar has started popping up a bunch, and as, with the IRA, we've been able to stretch that grant money further, a lot of people, more people are coming out saying, "Ooh, I would want to go solar. I saw my neighbor went solar. I saw my brother went solar. Like, now I'm interested in the program too." So we kind of did this initial phase 1 of, our first chunk of leads and getting the education out there. And for phase 2, we're going to do a lot more education. So we're going to go out to the nation, kind of maybe attend some meetings, tell people about the program, tell them what it potentially could cost for them. And then we can go back out and do more home visits and everything. So I feel like you kind of want to work in like a phase 1, phase 2 into these types of programs, because we really found, we thought, oh, we'd get all these leads in, we'll do all these installs, we'll use up the money. But the IRA we've been able to stretch this money a little bit further. And then more people are now coming out that maybe didn't sign up for it originally.
The Seneca Nation of Indians has been an amazing partner, because both at the leadership level and at the individual level, right, there's this deep adherence to protecting what they would say is Mother Earth. And at our core, right, that's why GreenSpark is here, right? We are here to do our part as best we can to combat the climate crisis. And so, when you combine those two things, there's just a ton more work to do, right? The nation has several distinct territories that we're looking at. We're looking at EPA funds for whether or not we could just blow the doors off, add community solar, add more opportunities for at their community complex or their ice skating rink or right. They're just such a forward-thinking people, and really represent I think a real bright light in and amongst the sovereign nations as someone that's really trying to advance the health and welfare of their people and their community.
This is why I love our Project of the Year awards. We spend most of the year kind of talking about running a solar business and the technical aspects of things and this and that. And this is finally a time to what's really changing things for people tangibly and for our future. And this is just a great example. And I'm so glad that our readers felt that way. And you all can take home this year's Project of the Year award. So Katie and Kevin, thanks for taking the time to talk about it today.
Of course.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. We're super proud of the award.